My girlfriend Rachel disappeared for 48 hours without a word, leaving me panicked and calling hospitals. When she finally surfaced, she posted on social media about normalizing keeping secrets from your partner for mental health and blocked me when I asked where she'd been. She claimed I was controlling and toxic for wanting to know if she was safe. What she didn't know was that her mental health break was actually a weekend getaway with her ex-boyfriend, funded by money she'd been stealing from our joint savings. So I decided to give her exactly the kind of privacy she claimed to need. Hey viewers, welcome to the channel. We are just starting and your support means a lot. If you enjoy these stories, please consider subscribing and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. I, David, 34, my girlfriend, Rachel, 32, had been together for 2 years. We moved in together 8 months ago, split everything 50-50, had joint savings for our future. I thought we were building something real. She was the first person I'd ever lived with, the first person I'd ever truly trusted with everything. I gave her my whole heart, and I thought she'd given me hers. I should have seen the red flags earlier, but when you love someone, you make excuses. You rationalize. You tell yourself that everyone has flaws, everyone needs space, everyone processes things differently. The first red flag was how she started treating basic communication like it was some kind of oppression. If I asked about her day, she'd accuse me of interrogating her. If I mentioned I missed her when she was out late, she'd say I was being clingy. She started using therapy language as weapons, calling me codependent for wanting to spend time together and controlling for asking normal boyfriend questions. But I loved her, so I tried to be better. I gave her more space. I stopped asking questions. I let her have her privacy because she convinced me that healthy relationships required complete independence. I was walking on eggshells, afraid that any normal relationship behavior would be labeled as toxic. Then came that weekend in March. Friday evening, Rachel said she was going to hang out with her friend Jessica. She kissed me goodbye around 7, told me not to wait up, and left. I didn't think anything of it. She'd been stressed at work, and I figured she needed some girl time. Saturday morning, I woke up and she wasn't home. Her side of the bed hadn't been slept in. I texted her asking if she was okay, got no response. I called around noon, went straight to voicemail. By evening, I was genuinely worried. This wasn't like her. She always at least texted me back, even when she was annoyed with me. Sunday morning, still nothing. I called Jessica, who seemed confused and said she hadn't seen Rachel all weekend. That's when I really started to panic. I called her work, her other friends, even her mom. No one had heard from her. Her mom started crying on the phone, asking if we'd had a fight if Rachel had seemed depressed. I spent Sunday driving around town, checking her favorite coffee shops, the gym, anywhere she might be. I was preparing to call the police when my phone buzzed with a notification. Rachel had posted on Instagram. It was a photo of a sunrise from some hiking trail I didn't recognize, with a caption that made my blood run cold. Sometimes you need to disappear to remember who you are. Taking time for myself without having to explain myself to anyone. We need to normalize keeping secrets from our partners for our mental health. Not everything needs to be shared. Privacy isn't betrayal. I stared at my phone in complete shock. She'd been gone for 48 hours, had me and her family worried sick, and she was posting inspirational quotes about keeping secrets. I commented on the post, "Are you okay? I've been worried sick. Can you please just let me know you're safe?" She deleted my comment and blocked me on everything. Instagram, Facebook, even blocked my number. I sat in my car in some random parking lot, staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. The woman I loved, the woman I'd been planning to propose to, had vanished for 2 days, let me think something terrible had happened to her, then blocked me for being concerned about her safety. When she finally came home Sunday night, she walked in like nothing had happened. I was sitting on the couch, and when I saw her, I felt this mixture of relief and rage that I'd never experienced before. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I told you," she said, not even looking at me as she headed toward the bedroom. "I needed space. I needed to not have to explain myself to anyone." "Rachel, I thought you were dead. I was about to call the police." "Your mom is crying, thinking something happened to you." She stopped and turned around, and the look she gave me was pure disgust. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said. "This controlling behavior, this need to track my every move, it's suffocating. I'm not trying to control you, I was worried about your safety. You were worried about controlling me, there's a difference." For the next 3 hours, she lectured me about boundaries, about how my concern was actually manipulation, about how I needed to respect her need for privacy. She used every therapy buzzword in the book to make me feel like I was the problem. She said she'd been talking to her therapist about my toxic patterns and that I needed to work on myself. By the end of the night, I was apologizing to her, apologizing for being worried, apologizing for wanting to know if she was safe. She'd completely flipped the script and made me the villain in my own story, but something felt off. Call it intuition, call it paranoia, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. So I did something I'd never done before in any relationship. I started paying attention. I noticed she'd started taking her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. I noticed she'd changed all her passwords. I noticed she was suddenly working late a lot more often. And I noticed that our joint savings account was slowly getting smaller. At first, it was small amounts, $50 here, $100 there. She always had explanations, new work clothes, gas, lunch with friends. But when I actually looked at the statements, $500 had disappeared in the past month. That's when I decided to figure out where she'd been that weekend. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I was desperate for answers. I knew she'd posted that sunrise photo from somewhere, so I reverse searched the image. It led me to a hiking trail about 3 hours away near a resort town called Pine Valley. I drove up there the following weekend, telling Rachel I was visiting my brother. I showed her photo to people at the local coffee shops and restaurants. At the third place I tried, a small bed and breakfast, the owner recognized her immediately. "Oh yes, the lovely couple that stayed in our honeymoon suite," she said. "They seemed so happy together." My heart stopped. "Couple?" "Yes, her and her boyfriend. They checked in Friday night, left Sunday morning. They were celebrating their anniversary, I believe." She showed me the registration book. There it was, clear as day, Rachel Martinez and David Chen. David Chen. Her ex-boyfriend from college, the one she'd assured me was just a friend when he'd moved back to town 6 months ago. The pieces started falling into place. The late nights at work, the mysterious expenses, the way she'd been pulling away from me emotionally while preaching about independence and mental health. She hadn't been on some spiritual journey of self-discovery. She'd been cheating on me with her ex and using our money to pay for their romantic getaway. But the worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was how she'd manipulated me afterward, how she'd made me feel guilty for being worried about her safety, how she'd used therapy language to gaslight me into thinking my normal human reactions were toxic, how she'd convinced me that I was the problem. I drove home that Sunday in a daze, trying to figure out what to do with this information. I could confront her, but I knew she'd just deny it or find a way to make it my fault. I could leave, but part of me wanted her to face consequences for what she'd done. She'd stolen from me, lied to me, and then psychologically manipulated me into apologizing for her betrayal. That's when I remembered something she'd said during one of her lectures about boundaries. "I don't owe you explanations about my personal life. I'm entitled to privacy, and if you can't handle that, maybe you're not mature enough for this relationship." Fine. I decided to give her exactly the kind of privacy she claimed to want. I started documenting everything. I took screenshots of our bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals. I saved her social media posts about normalizing secrets and toxic partners who demand explanations. I even drove back to Pine Valley and got a copy of the bed and breakfast registration from the owner, who was happy to help when I explained the situation. Then I started planning my exit strategy. I found a new apartment, arranged to transfer to a different branch at work, and quietly moved my belongings out bit by bit while she was at her late meetings with David. The beautiful irony was that she was so absorbed in her double life that she didn't even notice. She'd come home and lecture me about giving her space, not realizing that I was already gone emotionally and would soon be gone physically. 3 weeks later, I was ready. I'd moved everything important out of our apartment. I'd closed our joint accounts and transferred only my contributions to a new account. I'd even arranged for the landlord to let me out of the lease early once I explained the situation and showed him the evidence of her stealing from our shared funds. On a Friday morning, after she left for work, I moved out completely. I left her a letter on the kitchen counter along with printed copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. The letter was simple. Rachel, you taught me that privacy isn't betrayal and that I shouldn't demand explanations about your personal life. You were right, so I won't be explaining where I'm going or why I'm leaving. I'm giving you exactly the kind of space and independence you said you needed. The bank statements speak for themselves. I've taken only what was mine and left what was yours. I hope your anniversary weekends with David were worth it. Don't contact me. As you said, not everything needs to be shared. I also left a second letter addressed to David, which I'd sent to his workplace. It contained copies of all the evidence, along with a note. Thought you should know that the woman you're dating has been stealing money from her live-in boyfriend to fund your romantic getaways. Just wanted to make sure you knew what kind of person you're celebrating anniversaries with. My phone started ringing around noon. Rachel had found my letter. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the texts, dozens of them. First angry, then panicked, then trying to negotiate. She claimed it wasn't what it looked like, that David was just a friend, that they hadn't done anything wrong. When that didn't work, she tried to flip it back on me, saying I was being cruel and vindictive. But the best part came 3 days later when I got a call from her friend Jessica. Apparently, Rachel had been telling everyone that I'd abandoned her without explanation, that I'd stolen money from their joint account, and that I was a controlling, abusive boyfriend who couldn't handle her independence. I just wanted you to know, Jessica said, that she's been telling a very different story about what happened. But then David called me asking about the documents you sent him, and when I saw the evidence, I realized she's been lying about everything. It turns out David had no idea I existed. Rachel had told him she was single, that she'd left her ex months ago. When he saw the bank statements and the timeline of their relationship overlapping with ours, he was horrified. He immediately ended things with her and told several mutual friends what had happened. Within a week, Rachel's carefully constructed narrative had crumbled. The friends she'd been telling about my controlling behavior had seen the evidence of her cheating and stealing. Her family, who she'd convinced that I was emotionally abusive, learned the truth about her disappearing act and what she'd really been doing. The woman who'd spent months lecturing me about toxic masculinity and controlling behavior had been exposed as a manipulative cheater who stole money to fund her affair, then psychologically abused her boyfriend for being concerned about her safety. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved back in with her parents and was having trouble dating because word had gotten around about what she'd done. Apparently, she tried to restart things with David, but he wanted nothing to do with her. I won't lie and say I felt bad for her. I didn't. She'd made her choices, and she'd been so confident in her ability to manipulate me that she never considered the consequences. She thought she could have her cake and eat it too, but she forgot that even the most patient person has limits. The irony is that she got exactly what she said she wanted: complete privacy, complete independence. No one asking her questions or expecting explanations. She's free to keep all the secrets she wants now. As for me, I'm doing better than I ever thought possible. I'm in therapy, but real therapy, not the weaponized version Rachel used against me. I'm learning to trust my instincts again, to recognize manipulation tactics, and to understand that love shouldn't require you to apologize for caring about someone's safety. I'm dating someone new now, someone who actually appreciates when I ask about her day, who doesn't treat basic communication like an invasion of privacy. It's amazing how different a healthy relationship feels when both people are actually committed to honesty and transparency. Sometimes I think about that weekend when Rachel disappeared, and I realize it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because I enjoyed the pain and worry, but because it showed me who she really was underneath all the therapy speak and manipulation tactics. It gave me the clarity I needed to see that I wasn't the toxic one in that relationship. She taught me that actions speak louder than words, that someone can preach about mental health and boundaries while being the most psychologically damaging person in your life. But she also taught me that I'm stronger than I thought, that I deserve better than someone who treats love like a game to be won through deception. In the end, the person who claimed to need space to find herself lost everything that actually mattered. And the person she tried to convince was controlling and toxic found the strength to walk away and build something better. That's the real difference between privacy and secrets. Privacy is about having space to be yourself. Secrets are about hiding who you really are. Rachel was never seeking privacy. She was protecting secrets. And secrets, as I learned, always come out eventually.